Jeremiah chapter 4, let's look at verse 3. This is what the Lord says to the people of Judah and to Jerusalem. Break up your unplowed ground, and do not sow among thorns. Circumcise yourselves to the Lord. Circumcise your hearts, you people of Judah, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. You know, most teaching, whether it's biblical teaching or sometimes motivational teaching, or even in school, teachings, classes, carpentry class, whatever, most teaching focuses on what to do and how to do it. But I want to focus on when to do it. We've taken, we're doing a series that I've entitled, There's a Time for Everything. I've taken it from the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And it says, there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven. You know, there's a time for everything, but there's also a activity for every season. So what I've done is I've taken the 4 seasons, winter, spring, summer, and autumn, and I've used that as a symbol of our own lives and how we're supposed to live and how we ourselves will go through different seasons in our lives. Now, our lives compose of many compartments. We have our spiritual life, physical life, financial life, our career, our family, friends, our hobbies, fun things to do, ministry. We have things that in other words, our life is not just spirit. See, your life is more than just reading the Bible and praying. You have a career to have. You have relationships, friends, marriage. You have ministry. You have things you want to do that's fun. How many of y'all know you don't want to work all day? You also want to have a break and have some fun. Come on, hello. You didn't think a preacher would ever say have some fun. You know, it's all right, as long as it's not immoral fun, you understand? But our life has all these compartments to it, and I've talked about 8 compartments. I'm not going to mention those 8 compartments today. You can get my app, and I'll share with you the 8 compartments. But basically, these compartments in our life will go through 4 seasons. And I've used winter as a symbol of a dark season in our life when nothing good is happening. Everything's cold, everything's frozen, nothing's growing. Now, in the natural, a lot of people like winter. Who thinks winter's your favorite season? Anybody? Yeah, so a lot of you like winter. How many of y'all say spring's my favorite season? How about summer? Who loves summer? That's your favorite. Who says, I like autumn? That's my favorite. See, most people raise their hand on autumn because it's like the most perfect weather, all right? If you were a farmer, no doubt your favorite season would be autumn because that's when you get to reap and make a lot of money. You get all the hard work you've been doing. Finally, you reap it, and you get to distribute and all that. So what I've done is I've taken the 4 seasons and basically broke it down and said that the different compartments in our life, we go through various seasons. And so we have what we call the winter season. Let's look at all 4 of them just real quickly. We have these 4 seasons of life. Winter is a season for dreaming and goal setting. Maybe you can't do anything with your life, but you can definitely start dreaming and goal setting. So we have winter, and then there's spring. Spring is the season when you are going to plant. We're going to talk about that today. Then summer, you got to water and cultivate. And then fall is the time you get to reap and distribute. That's the season we all would like our lives to be at. The season of reaping and things are going well. Now, in these various compartments to your life, you can have one compartment in the winter season and another compartment in the autumn where you're reaping. Remember, Jesus said there was a rich man and Lazarus. Well, if I was to ask, what season was Lazarus in when it came to health and money? He would be in the winter season. He was broke and he was very sick, right? But spiritually, he was very strong. So when he died, he went right into Abraham's bosom. See, it's possible to be rich, it's possible to be sick and poor, and yet spiritually you're doing well. The rich man, on the other hand, if we were to ask him, how are you doing financially? Oh man, I'm doing great. But how was he spiritually? No good. He was in the winter. And when he died, he went into hell. You see, so in our lives, we have various seasons. You can be doing well financially, but your marriage is in shambles. You see, you can be having a lot of fun, but you have no ministry time, no serving to others. You could, be in various seasons of your life. So our lives go through different aspects. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm using these 4 seasons to show what is going on and what activity of the season you should be doing. So when things are bleak and things are bad, what do? One thing you have to do is dream and plan and have a goal to get out of the winter season. You can't just hope to get out of the winter season. You got to plan and start thinking, what do I need to do to get out of this very bad season of my life? And I knew, for example, financially, we were going to have a very tough season with this lawsuit. I knew where the judge was headed. I knew he was going to punish us if I didn't, settle. So while I saw it coming, I began to plan. I have goals. And I'll be sharing with you some of the things that I did and am doing now to get us out of that season. So it's goals. So when things are going well, you have to have a goal. If you want to get strong spiritually, what's your goal? Well, I need to start going to church. Yes, more than twice a year, right? You need to start going to church every Sunday. And you need to start going to Bible study. Hello. Some of you are going to be like, me? Going to church twice a week? I was used to twice a year. Easter and Christmas. What am I? You're trying to make me a priest? You already are one. That's why. Yeah. So you have to have a plan, a goal. So if you want your marriage to get better, how are you going to get it better? There has to be a goal. Well, we need to do this. We need to start making these changes in our life. If you want to get healthier, you have to have a goal. You have to have a plan. How am I going to lose weight? What are the exercise? How am I going to be able to stick to it? How can this be a lifestyle change? See, so there has to be goals. So in the winter season of life, you have to have goals. But today we're going to talk about spring, and that means you have to do what? Plant. It's now time to enact your goals. You're not going to lose weight reading the diet books. You're going to have to actually diet. I'm going to actually have to do something about this. So now comes the time for action. You're ready to act on your dreams, act on your goals. Jeremiah says, however, before you plant, you have to do what? Break up. Verse 3, break up the unplowed ground. I remember our first starter home we bought. We had just dirt in our backyard. Actually, it was a side front backyard. It was a very Mexican-style home. And to get grass, I had to break up the dirt. Because if I put seed on just hard ground, it's not going to do anything. Now, what Jeremiah says is, before you sow the seed, you're going to have to break up the ground. And then he tells you what he means. Circumcise your heart. How many of y'all think circumcision is painful? It is. Thank God I don't remember it. All right? But I understand it would be painful. Now, there is going to have to be some pain that you're going to have to go through if you're going to see changes in your life. And I know sometimes people tell you this is a painless diet. Really? This is going to be a painless way to get close to God. It's going to be painless to have this courage. No. Nothing begins without pain. Without pain, there is no gain. Yes. So you have to break up your heart. And what he's saying here is you're going to have to deal sincerely with the sins in your life. See, it's not just about losing weight. You have to deal with the sin of gluttony, a sin of laziness, of slothfulness. And you have to get real with yourself. If you're not getting close to God, you have to deal with the real reason. And so many times we just want to glance over. We just want to change, but we don't really deal honestly with the sins in our life and the things that are keeping us from seeing what God wants us to see in our lives. So what Jeremiah says, before he says sow the seed, he says you got to break up the ground. And what he means by that is you got to dig deep and get out of your life the things that are keeping you from being a success. You want to have a career, but your problem is you quit all the time. You don't want to make a sacrifice. You don't want to deal with the things that are keeping you from success in life. So we have to really dig deep and honestly with ourselves. So I think that's why some people, they start businesses to fail. They start diets to only gain more weight and get worse. They're the ones that running to church. See, they come to church and say, I need God in my life. And they come to the altar. They may even get baptized, but they don't show up after a few months. What happened to them? You know why? They had a superficial encounter with God. You see, when you have a deep encounter with God, it cuts to the heart. Your heart is circumcised. And there comes a weeping, a sorrow for your sins where you recognize, oh my God, what have I done? I deserve hell. And there comes a deep conviction, so deep, it will bring you to weeping, to tears. And is that conversion? And I've seen people go through that. They're still around decades because they got it. They understood what it really meant to be saved. But others, they come to the Lord because things are not going right with their life. They're having problems with their marriage. They're having financial problems with their kids. They're just not generally happy. And they're coming to make the Lord solve their problems. Come on. If I come to church, then our marriage will get better. My children will serve the Lord. I'll make more money. Things will get better if I give my life to Christ. But see, they never got circumcised in their heart. They wanted a fix for their problems, but they didn't dig the hard ground of their heart because there's still a hardness in their heart. That's why the conversion is superficial, and those people fall away. And this is what he's saying here, is before you sow the seed, you better break up the hard heart and get rid of the things that are hindering you from experiencing God's blessings. Joel Osteen's grandmother was a widowed, and she wanted so desperately to get remarried. But she had a terrible, nasty habit. She loved chewing tobacco. Oh, she would chewing tobacco, but she would ask people, she asked her son, please pray for me. I know, you love your dad and all that, but she would tell John, but I want to get married. I want to have a husband. But you know what? John would tell her, Mama, no man's going to like a woman that chews tobacco. That's gross. It's gross enough on a man. But in our culture, with a woman chewing it, it's gross. But she loved her tobacco. And she wanted so badly to get married and still chew her tobacco. But finally, her heart was cut. She broke it up and she recognized, who am I kidding? First of all, tobacco habit's a bad habit anyway. But what kind of good man am I going to get? I want a godly man, a Christian man. And how am I might get a truck driver. And we chew tobacco together. But don't miss it. If you're a truck driver, God bless you. Got a lot of good Christian truck drivers. Hallelujah. All right, we got a bunch of them in our church actually. But and she realized she had to get rid of it, and she cut the tobacco. She wanted so badly to chew that tobacco, but she cut it off. It hurt. And here's my point. You're going to have to go through pain. You're going to have to go through pain in ministry. If you want to start a church or have a ministry, there's going to be pain in it. If you want to see your marriage get better, you're going to have the pain of counseling and being reprimanded and having your feelings get hurt and, it hurt. But that's how you get better. You want to succeed in your career, you're going to have pain. You're going to have to keep your salary low. You can't be greedy. You got to deal with greed and love. You got to get rid of those things if you're going to be successful in business. People have the idea, once I get in a business, my goodness, I'll be able to buy this luxury home and I'll be able to drive this luxury car. So the moment they start it, they pay themselves too much money. Come on. You got to be conservative. and cut your salary, cut the greed, and say, no, it's worth it. I have to sacrifice to make this work. But do you get what I'm saying? Is in life, there has to be a sacrifice, a pain, a getting rid of the sin, the things that's going to hinder you from succeeding in life. So what are the things that keep us from sowing and getting started and making things happen to see positive changes? I'm convinced there are 3 things that stop us from becoming responsible. You know, in spring is also a time of spring fever. You ever notice when spring comes around, that's when people go get drunk, they go party. Before Lent, what do people do? On Tuesday, Fat Tuesday. Blah, 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 blah. See, when it comes to spring, some people are irresponsible. And while some are partying like animals, the real successful people have their books open and they're studying and learning. 2 types of people. This is why he says in Jeremiah, don't sow among the thorns. Thorns speak of spring fever. It's irresponsible actions. What keeps people from acting responsibly and doing what is necessary to make their spiritual life, their family life, their physical life, their financial life, their career life, their relationships, friends, ministry? What keeps them from being successful? I'm convinced there are 3 things that will keep you from responsible action. And the 3 things are fear of others, irresponsibility, and procrastination. On procrastination, we'll talk about that in a few weeks. I'm joking. We're going to talk about it now. We're not going to put it off, all right? These 3 things will keep you from acting responsibly in your life. Let's deal with fear for a moment. Go to Proverbs 29. Proverbs chapter 29. All right, Proverbs 29. Let's look at verse 25. Proverbs 29, verse 25. And what does it say? Let's read it together. Fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. Not only do people have fear of not succeeding, obviously, you know, there's a thought when we started the church, what if we don't succeed? But there was a greater fear in me. It was the fear of other people. When you want to make changes, you're going to have to conquer the fear of others. And one of the fears that I had to conquer when I started this church was the fear of my own pastor. See, my own pastor told us, don't ever start a church in El Paso. He said, this is my city, and if you try to start a church, I'll blow you out of the water. That was his exact words. I'll blow you out of the water. Now, if you want to start a church in another city, I might help you, but don't you ever do it here. Now, he warned us. And now God spoke to me and said, start a church here in El Paso. But Lord, haven't you heard my pastor? He said, So I had this battle. What would he think if I did it? But you know what? I had to conquer that fear. Because on Judgment Day, I won't stand before the pastor. I'll stand before God. And it was his own insecurity trying to make everyone afraid to compete with him. At least that's how he viewed it. It's not competition. We're all in the same field. But I had to conquer it. I said, no. And even my wife, when I told her what God told me to do, she said, but pastor said. I said, I knew you were going to say that. I said, you think this pastor can be, I don't care how big he gets, you think he'll win all of El Paso? So I took my wife up to Scenic Drive, not to make out. Although I think we did. I don't know. But I took her up to Scenic Drive, and we looked over how big El Paso was. I said, our pastor has a church of 4,000. Do you think there's more than 4,000 El Pasoans here? Doesn't matter if he has 30, 40, 50,000. One church cannot win El Paso. We need to work together. And when she saw that, she looked at me and said, I believe you're right. And together, we conquered the fear of our pastor. We could not be afraid of what he thought about us. And to this day, I don't care. Doesn't matter. One time I was actually in Dallas at a conference. This is funny. And my pastor was one of the speakers in Dallas. And he mentioned that he doesn't believe in any churches to be built in El Paso, because bad pastors. And then he points me out in the church. But he says, isn't that right, Tom? There's just a lot of bad pastors in our city. He's acting like I'm not. That, oh, yeah, sure, yeah. There's. And then I remember after the first session was over, I'm in the restroom, and I hear two pastors say, man, didn't you feel sorry for that pastor in El Paso? Boy, he must have felt bad. He started a church right there. And I'm thinking, well, he doesn't know. I'm overhearing him. But anyway, I had to conquer that fear. It was a real fear. Not just the fear of failing, but the fear of what people would think.